everybody, hope you're doing well. It's Lane here with MetaShackle. Today I'm going to do a decode on the US debt clocks photo that they recently posted in their hidden window. If you go to usdebtclock.org, you swing over here to the right side, there's this little tab right here that says secret window. If you click on that secret window, it'll take you to this picture. So I've been thinking about this really hard and taking a look at this since a friend of mine showed it to me the other day. I've studied numerology and symbology and the esoteric and the occult for a long time. I'm certainly not a part of any of that shit, but I've studied it, and in a lot of ways, I wouldn't say that I've learned to speak their language, but I've learned to read their language. Now, I've looked over this and thought about it from a lot of different ways and made a lot of different connections in regards to this picture that was posted, and it's incredibly intricate. Like, whoever put this together put a lot of time and energy and a lot of thought into this, because nearly every detail of this photo has meaning in it. Now, take some of this with a grain of salt, because I might be wrong about some of this. I'm definitely right about some of it, and I'm probably wrong about some of it. So not everything I'm saying here is correct, but this has many, many different aspects when you look at it, from biblical to financial, from government to the occult to esoteric, to the planets. I mean, it goes deep. It's deep. So we'll get into it, and we're going to start with this outside portion here. You can see that there's, in the four corners of this, we have the earth placed here in the middle, and in each corner, the four corners, there's a small picture. It's hard to actually tell what's going on when you zoom and you look at these, but from what I can tell, they're angelic beings. And it doesn't look like they have any representation. This one seems like there's two in the photo, but it's really hard to tell, and I'm not familiar with these particular these, whatever you call them, these thumbnails, and I don't ever remember seeing them, but they look like old depictions of older art, and it's just really hard to get a sense on that. Somebody might have a better read on what these are and what they mean, because there might be a lot deeper meaning involved within these than I've deciphered. But if you look at the four of these with the earth in the center, it's very interesting, because if you go to the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 17, it says, "These great beasts, which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth." And it's interesting that it's 7:17, because relating to that is in the book of Revelation, chapter 7, verse 1, which is 7:1. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but it says, "And after these things I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, and that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree." So it's very interesting here how it says, "I saw four angels standing in the four corners of the earth," and that's exactly what we see here, is four angels standing in the four corners of the earth. And if you take a look at it, you can see that the earth is, it's represented from what would be, I guess you could consider a lens, eye view, kind of a fisheye lens. But then in the background over the top, it kind of almost represents a dome here, which, if you know anything about the dome, that's, a biblical reference. So we have the biblical reference from these four angels standing in the four corners of the earth. And we have this path here that's in the shape of an X. Now, many of you who kind of look into this stuff will know that this path right here represents the eclipse path crossing America in 2017. And this path in this direction, this part of the X, this actually represents the solar eclipse that we're going to see on April 8th as it heads up from the bottom through Texas, through Eagle Pass, and up across through the middle and up past New York. So it's forming this X. Now you'll see here in the center of that X, because there's an old saying that X marks the spot, right? Well, this symbol right here in this circle, you can see that there's a plus sign or a cross right here in the center. Now this is an old symbol for the sun. It's an esoteric symbol. It's called the sun cross. It represented the sun back in the day, even though now it's used to also represent the earth. So X marks the spot. We know that this is a solar path from the eclipse, and the symbol in the center with this strong cross actually represents the sun. And you can see there's actually an X behind it here, which makes for 8 points. The 8-pointed star in the Bible is known as the morning star, or it represents Lucifer or Venus. But in this case, you can see that this is clearly trying to represent the sun. It's making a reference that it's the sun. Now, right here, you can see this. There's a circle here where the sun's represented, and there's one underneath it. Now, this represents what's called the Vesica Pisces. Now, it's represented by 2 circles. You know, you could think of this as birth, because this is a symbol of female, of birth, bringing something into existence. And these 2 circles are oftentimes looked at as being the first 2 cells when life begins, and those 2 cells coming together and starting the process of creating a human being. So once a human is conceived, those cells come together, and then they just start dividing and dividing and dividing, and eventually you got a human. One way of looking at that, you know, it's granted it's one on top here, one on top here, and in this example, they're side by side. So this right here having this here, and also a small representation of it here and here. You can see that being in the center of that, it's representing the birth of something or bringing something into existence. And it also has this, what's called the Christian fish. I think it's called ichthos or something to that point. I can't remember the exact name of it. But Christians generally use this symbol, and a lot of Christians don't realize that that's actually a representation in a way of the Vesica Pisces, because it takes this, the female portion, and it just matches perfect right here with the tail. And you can see this here. And that's very interesting because a lot of people are calling this the sign of Jonah, because it's going through like 7 cities, I think, that are called Nineveh. And it has an X in the center of the fish. And being the sign of Jonah, Jonah spent 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the fish, or the belly of the whale. So the X is marking the center of it as if it was inside of it. And this symbol can also represent Pisces and Aquarius, I believe. So taking that into consideration, that's just something to think about. So we have this X, we have the solar symbol, we have the representation here of the sun. So now you have these 4 angels in the corners, and there's an X here, an X here, and there's an X here. So when you look at things from an esoteric philosophy, I guess, it says, what does the X symbolize spiritually? There are many different interpretations of what X symbolizes spiritually. Some believe the X is a symbol of the divine, while others believe it represents the duality of the universe. Still others believe that X represents the 4 elements: fire, earth, air, and water, or the 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. So you have the elementals here, the 4 elementals up in each corner, which is very interesting. Because if you look at what David Schwartz said, he said all the elements are now taken. Google has earth, Apple has air, Amazon has fire, but Ripple has water. And anybody who knows anything about Ripple or XRP knows that it's oftentimes referred to as water. Ripple, water. It just makes sense, right? So you have those 4 elements of the X. Well, it's interesting because if you go to the movie Elemental, this movie has a lot of, I don't know how you'd put it, a lot of ways of pointing to what's coming. Now, if you look at this picture, this character is named Wade. He's water. He's from an extremely wealthy family. Now, he represents Ripple, or XRP. And this character over here is Ember. Now, her family, they're common folks. They're not rich by any means. Now, they represent light or lumens. And if you look in the back here, you can even see Earth, which would represent Google. You can see Air over here, which would represent Apple, for example, from what David Schwartz just said. And the other thing you'll notice is in the picture, as far as the size comparisons go, that Wade is the biggest. He's way bigger. He's taken up more of the picture than anybody. Ember's second. And then you look down here, well, what represents Google or Earth is much smaller. And Apple, or the Air, is higher than the Earth. So that's an interesting comparison, because if you go to the market cap comparisons right now, Apple's second in place, Google is in fifth, and Amazon is in sixth, and Ripple, however, and Stellar are nowhere to be found. They're not even close to being anywhere on this list. So they're not even in existence, even though the symbology from that movie seems to be saying that Ripple is going to be bigger than Stellar, and Stellar is going to be bigger than Google, and obviously Apple's going to be up just above Google, which we can see right now. So that fact will still remain in the future. But the X represents the elements. So that's very, very interesting. Now if we go back to the picture here, you can see that in this sun symbol, there's a lot of meaning to this right here. You can see this sun symbol, the light is coming from the top and it's coming from the bottom, and it makes a straight line all the way through the entire picture. So it says wake up to a new reality. So when you wake up as the sun's coming up. So the sun's just cresting right here. You can't see the sun yet, but it's coming up. So you're waking up to a new reality. Something is starting, something's beginning. And the Vesica Pisces here representing something is being birthed, brought into reality.